Hi, I'm Larry Richardson and welcome to Zeniors.com Cooking. Today we're going to make chicken spinach vegetable marinara. It's exactly the way it sounds and it's healthy. We're going to use boneless, skinless chicken, 2 bags of spinach, and as many vegetables as we can cram into it. This is part of our Healthy Choice series, which means that we try to put as many vegetables in a standard dish as we can so that the people eating it hardly notice they're eating healthy. So come on, let me show you how to make it. Okay, so now let's take a look at what we need to make our chicken spinach vegetable marinara. We have about 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken. We will probably use about 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil. We have these crushed tomatoes. That's about the equivalent of 2 large cans. I bought this at a discount warehouse, so it tends to be larger than life. We have 2 6-ounce cans of tomato paste. I'm not sure exactly how much of this we're going to use today. I like to use this to thicken up the sauce. We may only need 1 can. We have 2 bags of baby spinach. We have a green pepper, a red pepper, a head of garlic, 1 sweet Vidalia onion, and some Italian seasonings. So that's really the essential recipe right here. So why don't we get started making it right now? The first thing I did is I put the chicken back into my refrigerator to make sure it stays fresh while we're getting the vegetables ready. And the first thing we'll do is we'll open up the can of crushed tomatoes. Wow, that's a meaty can. And we'll pour that into a large pan. There we go. And you have to be real careful when you do this because this stuff really likes to travel. So, okay, it's traveling. So what I'm going to do is get a soup ladle. And we'll just put that right into the pan like this. Every now and then I try something like that and I think it's going to go smoothly and I get tomato sauce on me. So here we go. And we can just ladle that out. And when it gets deep enough, then I can just pour it in and it should not splash. There we go. Okay, and we'll take this and we'll put it on about 1/4 heat, so between off and medium. The first thing we'll do is we'll chop up our green pepper. Let's core it first and get the seeds out. There we go. And these were rinsed off already. And we're going to cut it into kind of, not really minced, but probably about 1/8 to 1/4 inch thick slices. And then we're going to square that off. So there we go. And you come down like this. And again, the point of this recipe, other than it tastes fantastic, is to sneak as many vegetables to yourself, your friends, and your family as you can in a way that they're not even aware that they're eating healthy. There's something about saying the word healthy or vegetarian, even though this is not a true vegetarian dish, that makes people nervous. Here we go. So you can see these are very substantial vegetable slices, and peppers are supposed to be very good for you. They're supposed to be loaded with cancer-fighting antioxidants, not to mention lots of vegetables, roughage, and vitamins. Now you can add either more pepper or less pepper as you see fit. Make the recipe as it appears here. We will also have the recipe printed or available to be printed on Zeniors.com. And let us know what you think. Do you think it tastes better with a little bit less pepper, a little bit less vegetable, or do you think we should add more? I'm very interested in your input. And now we'll do the onion. And finally, what I'm going to do with the pepper, finally what I'm going to do with the garlic is crush it into the pepper mix. And then we're going to saute all of it. Now you can either crush the garlic directly into this bowl full of vegetables, or you can crush it into a smaller bowl in case you're concerned that paper is going to get in the dish. Like that. And that should do it for the garlic. Now, it's also, keep in mind, garlic is a matter of taste. If you tend not to like too much of it, do not put an entire head in. Just start with a couple of cloves, and then as you go, add more as you make this recipe over and over. And, try to bring in the mix the way you like it. You might not like as much pepper as we added, you might not like as much garlic, and you might not like as much spinach. So the first time you make it through, try it our way, and then make adjustments and make it to your taste and the taste of your family and friends. So the next thing we're going to do is saute these peppers and garlic with the onions. And to saute, I put the pan on medium, and I'm adding 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And that should be plenty to saute these vegetables before we add them to the sauce. Now the trick to sauteing is to stir the vegetables, keep them moving, and when you notice the onions just starting to look clear, just starting, that's when you need to get this off the heat and into the sauce. You don't want to overcook them. You don't want them to be completely mushy. Ideally, they should have a little bit of a crunch when you have them with the sauce. Isn't that beautiful? And I would say at this temperature, sauteing should take about 5 minutes. Okay, now our onions are looking clear now, so we'll stop the sauteing process. I hear that the sauce inside this big pan is really dancing, so I'm going to turn that down to low now. The problem with this type of sauce in a pan of this size is when it starts boiling, boy, it can really fly, and it can give you quite the little start when it hits your skin. So turn it down if you hear any kind of boiling going on, and do that before you take the pan cover off, because you don't want to be surprised by a bubble exploding on you. So now what I'm going to do is take the cover off of the pan of sauce, give it a quick stir, and add the vegetables. And there we go. You can see that the sauce has the vegetables in it now. I'm going to give this pan a quick rinse. Put it back on here. Cover up that sauce to try to keep it under control. Okay, I rinsed off the cutting board, and now what we'll do is we'll get our spinach ready. We're going to also saute this. The spinach is fully rinsed before you buy it. I just like to give it a little bit of a chop before I add it to the sauce, so that it's not big stringy pieces that get stuck in your mouth. So even before we saute it, I like to just cut it up like this. Now I'm using 2 bags in this recipe. You can use 1 or 2. It's totally up to you and up to your taste. And doing any of this chopping and slicing, it's not a high art. So don't worry about having everything to, to perfect dimensions. Every cube of pepper doesn't have to be exact, nor does every strip of spinach. Now you'll be amazed at how much volume is lost in spinach in the sauteing process. You'll see it in a moment. This might look like a tremendous amount of spinach, but it's really not. And there we go. There's our spinach ready to saute. We're working with a pretty low pan here, so I really need to saute the spinach about half at a time. So what I'm going to do is add 1 teaspoon of olive oil to the pan. The pan is already preheated, just short of medium. And then take about half of our spinach mix and just put it in with it. If you have a taller pan, you can do this all at once. Really want to mix that in with the olive oil, even though there isn't a tremendous amount of oil in this. And this does not take long at all. You can see that the bottom pieces of spinach are already wilting. And the reason we do this is that it helps to give an even consistency to the spinach, and it also locks in the flavor. If we just threw it in the tomato mix, it would just turn into an uneven, soggy mess. And try to keep the spinach moving as you're doing this. There you go, you can see that rich green color in the middle of the spinach. And that took about 5 minutes. Now the spinach is ready to add to the sauce. And I'll stir that in. And let's do the second half of our spinach. So again, 1 teaspoon of olive oil. And we'll throw the spinach on in there. Now it looks like we're getting dangerously close to the top, but we certainly still have enough room for the chicken. Now if you're absolutely a vegetarian, you could stop this recipe right now and not add any chicken at all, and it would be perfectly delicious. But for our purposes, we are going to add boneless, skinless breast of chicken, which is a very, very healthy, low-fat protein. So we'll do that right now. To avoid cross-contamination, I always like to slice the chicken on a plate or something other than the cutting board. A lot of people slice vegetables and meat on cutting boards on the same cutting board, and that's a good way to end up with an infection. So you really just want to be careful and use something other than your cutting board, the one that you cut vegetables on, to cut meat. And just so you can see that I'm slicing this chicken into smaller pieces. I'd say these pieces are about 1/2 inch square. But again, you don't have to have a perfect measure in cooking. And what we're going to do with this chicken is we're going to brown it before we add it to the sauce. Don't ever add raw meat to a sauce with the expectation that the sauce will cook it. And now that we have our chicken all sliced up, we're going to put it about at medium on the stove and add about a teaspoon of olive oil to cook it in. That will help the browning process, which again helps to seal in the flavor. Now in the browning process, we want to make sure that the chicken is cooked all the way through. So I'd say this would take about 10 minutes. And again, you don't want any pink inside this meat. You want it good and cooked. Okay, and that should do it. The chicken is browned and ready to go into the sauce. Now you can see we have a very rich vegetable sauce, and I'm about to add the chicken to it. And I am adding the juice from the chicken too, because it adds flavor to the dish. So here we go. And as if by a miracle, we just made it without all of the goodness coming out over the top. And let me give that a stir. The next thing we're going to do is add a tablespoon of Italian seasoning to the mix. I wouldn't add too much more than that. The dried herbs tend to be pretty potent, and they can take over a meal very fast. There we go. And the next question is, do we need to add some tomato paste? Now, if you like your marinara sauce on the thin side, then the answer is no. You have a nice consistency just as it is, especially when you use the crushed tomatoes. And it has a very fresh vegetable flavor. I tend to like mine a little bit thicker, so I'm going to add 1 can of tomato paste. And remember, we have a second can on hand just in case we decide it needs even further thickening. And we'll stir that in too. Now, if you get this close to the top in any recipe, the top of your pan, you'll probably want to spoon some out. After you get it all mixed up, ladle some out into another container and put it in your refrigerator, because this will likely expand more as it heats up, and I don't want the tomato sauce to come out over the top. In fact, I'm going to do that right now. There we go. That gives us a lot more breathing room. Now I'm going to put the cover back on and leave this on low or just above low heat and let it simmer for a half an hour. So here we have it, a nice steaming hot plate of chicken spinach vegetable marinara. It's delicious, it's good for you, it's loaded with vegetables. The chicken is skinless and boneless, so there's no real fat added other than the olive oil that we added to this dish. We also put it on a whole grain pasta, which adds even more health value to it. So please, try the recipe, give it to your family and friends, then visit Zeniers.com and let me know what you think. And also, when you visit the site, we'll have a copy of the recipe ready for you to print. So for Zeniers.com Cooking, I'm Larry Richardson.